mute that. Make sure everything is working. Just gonna let that settle down just a smidgen. The ethereal voice from the beyond. Mostly because I'm still reading bits and pieces and hoping things are working. Right. Hopefully you can all hear me. Stick something in the chat. I'm just testing out. There we go, that's working on there, which is really, really helpful. We'll press that button. We'll press that button. And we'll see how this looks. Oh. The frame rate's all over the shop. Hey, there we go. Oh. Looks like it's going to be another weird one. This is really frustrating. Basically, I can't move. Also, need to change the position. So I appreciate I look like I'm really, really close up. Heard loud and clear. Well, that's alright. I don't seem to have quite bottomed out. Just exactly why it continually says that the encoder is overloaded when I am doing nothing at all. So it says the frame rate is dropping, which is really frustrating. Well, give it a few more moments to let people join and see if it's going to let me fix these settings whilst we're talking about it. There we go. I need to do... Just going to see if I can whether it will let me drop it slightly and what that will do. Seeing if that will free up and let things kind of work a bit calmer, a bit clearer. It seems to be doing alright. It's doing better than it was a moment ago, so that will obviously help. How are we looking? People are joining, which is useful. Jamie, you have hit the nail on the head. Isn't it nice when these things work out for us? It's also just occurred to me as well, we're going to fix this whilst we're talking about it. Click there. Just because it's occurred to me that one of the things I didn't do was actually sort out as it was. Either way, we appear to have something working for the most part, and we will get rid of some of those bits there. Have another drink and see if we can get through what's going on. So I don't understand why everything is so jittery. Either way, we'll try and press on as best as we can. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday, it is 8 PM and welcome back to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name's Anthony Russell and a big welcome back for our June off-season special as we are here to talk through the lot. British hockey is our home, it is our heart, it is our home harbour, and we are here to have a chat through all of the off-season bits and pieces. We cover the lot from the Elite League to the National, to NIHL Division 1 and Division 2 in the North, and in the South we talk SNL, we talk WNIHL, and usually during the season we are here every week, but during the off-season we come back on the last Wednesday of every month just to have a check-in with all of the big bits of news, so usually for about 60 to 90 minutes. If you're new, hi. If you're old, hi still. Hopefully everyone is doing alright. Like I say, as Dave has put in the chat, tech issues, shocking. I just don't get it. I can't see what the problem is. I don't understand why everything is so jittery. It's not telling me why. Definitely, the mic is definitely on See, so I don't know what's going on there. Why is there no sound for anybody? That's very frustrating, because my microphone is very much saying it is on. This is very annoying. Destined to not be my night, unfortunately. Da, 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 da. It says the mic is on, folks, so if you can't hear me, maybe hit the refresh button and see if it will work. Otherwise, so Jamie has sound. You might need to hit the refresh, folks. Go out and go back in. But it definitely says, I can see my microphone peeking up into the relevant region. So I don't know what to tell you about that. See, I'm not the only one with tech issues. There we go. There we go. Had to go back out and reload. I don't know whether... Are people watching on their phones? I have this from time to time. I'll load up a YouTube video on my phone and it will just not play the sound for no reason at all. And I'll have to go out and go back in. But yes, either way, here to chat about British hockey and all the mad machinations. Like I said, we'll go maybe like 60 to 90 minutes. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about the big bits of news that have gone on because, of course, there's not much in the way of hockey being played in Great Britain. But we're going to talk back over the big bits of news. There's obviously been, apparently, everything happening today, including the fact that Bison made a signing announcement 10 minutes ago. So there's obviously that to take into account as well. But yeah, it's been a busy month. I personally here have tried to do as little as possible, but we'll get into that in a minute. Let's do the housekeeping, and then we'll get on from there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things British hockey related. Like I said, been a quiet June. It's been deliberate, but of course there is the latest bits and pieces. No in the box thinking because there's no games to commentate on. But there was the most recent hockey stories. It was the most recent hockey stories that we did with some of the fantastic female hockey content creators out there, as we asked the content question again, speaking to Soph Bonser and to Victoria Stewart. So do go check that out. That is obviously there. Otherwise, like I said, there is about 15 years worth of stuff to check out over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Look down in the description of this YouTube video. You've got all the links to the website, to all of our socials, as well as our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Never going behind the paywall, but to help keep the lights on and keep the wheels spinning. If you do want to contribute, please do. It's always appreciated, those that do. There's also the link down there to 3D Lee, who makes fantastic things like this. In there too. But yes, otherwise, the big thing to remember as we are talking our way through British hockey for the next hour or so is that you have the wonder of the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chuck in as we talk through the biggest and best news out of British and world hockey over the next hour or so. Please do feel free to do that. All we ask is that if you do use the chat, you do follow the golden rule, BOTW rule number 1, DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we're going to have a jolly good time, I am sure. Where do we start? Put in the chat where we start tonight, because it feels like the last couple of days there's been a lot. That's all I can kind of say on that one. The really frustrating thing, I'll say this as well, the really frustrating thing, as I'm just going to try and close another window and try and make everything run a bit smoother, because I've just realised something's running that I don't need to run anymore. The really frustrating thing is that I've got 2 drinks here at the moment. I have the Peroni Zero and I have the water bottle, right? And I put these in the freezer for like an hour before going live tonight, and they're cool, but they're not cold enough. I think is the frustration that I'm feeling here, because having put them in the freezer, I was hoping they'd be colder, and they're clearly not cold enough. Interesting thing I can just see in the chat that Andrew Day has put in, because this is news that I hadn't heard. I've heard quite a bit of news obviously today, and Jamie, we will talk about that I think after this. Angela putting in the chat there that the Kingston Diamonds are back in the WNIHL Elite. Now, the promotion and relegation system was made somewhat foggy from Division 1 up to the Elite League in the women's game by saying that new teams wouldn't be initially relegated if they finished bottom. They kind of had a year's grace. Andrew, if you've got any more details on that, or you've got somewhere we can look, that'd be really appreciated, because obviously the Kingston Diamonds doing the business at playoff weekend, women's playoff weekend, but interesting to see that, because that would obviously increase the Women's Elite League to 7 if Bristol have not been relegated. So I'm really interested to get some more information on that, Andrew. But I think, as Jamie has put in the chat, that talk about Solway, we better talk about Solway. So for those of you who need the catch-up, the potted version is, then we talked about it during the May off-season special as well, was that DJR Sports Limited, the operating company of the team out of Dumfries last season, the Solway Sharks, as we knew them. I like your TBA D-Roll. Thank you. We try. On their Facebook, it only came out a few hours ago. We'll have a look. I'll pull that up as we're talking. But Solway, certainly. DJR Sports, the operating company that has run the Solway Sharks for the last couple of years. It was obviously 3 people to start with. The other 2 co-owners bought out by John Strange, but effectively evicted by Dumfries and Galloway Council from the Dumfries Ice Bowl over lack of payments due. Obviously some argument from DJR Sports, but it meant effectively that the Solway Sharks, under the operation of the entity that we knew them, could not play at the Dumfries Ice Bowl. Now, a lot of work went on in the background. We heard, of course, about Ross Murray, former Solway Sharks player, and now back on the ice this year for the SNL Sharks, having registered the trademark of the name Solway Sharks to himself. That's obviously clearly an ongoing process, because the DJR Sports ownership have challenged that the ownership of that mark. But a lot of work went on in the background to get things going. A lot of work done by Jamie Thompson, the GM of the Sharks from last season. But we did eventually get the word. We got some word that people who paid for season tickets for the old ownership would be repaid, as would sponsors. Now, my understanding is that we are close to the 30-day mark of those refunds, and people have not received their money as of yet. I do not have, at the moment, at this time, any extra information as to what is happening with that one. However, we did, from everybody, all and sundry, because every single National Division team and the league themselves and the new team put out the information that there will be a newly run organisation. Hockey will remain in the National Division at the Dumfries Ice Bowl for next season, and we've seen the socials launch today under the name Solway IHC. Now, won't lie, the fact they're not back as the Dumfries Border Vikings, a little disappointing, but yeah, beggars can't be choosers on that front, is the thing on that one. We have, if you've not read the statement, we do have it here. We are pleased to confirm the club's place in the NIHL National League has been secured, and that we will compete in the 26-27 season as Solway IHC under the ownership of Gary McCracken, Jamie Crosby, Santiago Buesa and Charlie Shaw. The club moves forward with a clear vision to build a stable, ambitious and community-driven future for ice hockey in Dumfries and Galloway. So there are the 4 names of the new ownership group of Solway IHC. Gary McCracken, Jamie Crosby, Santiago Buesa, yes, as in related to Jordan, and Charlie Shaw. While the name above the door may evolve as the club continues its journey, our commitment to our supporters, sponsors, volunteers and community remains unchanged. The history, passion and pride that have defined hockey in this region will continue to drive us forward. So you have to think as well with that process around the trademark of the name Solway Sharks still up in the air, where Ross Murray having said that he had registered it to protect it for the community. That process is obviously still ongoing, so we could potentially see a return of the name Solway Sharks to the National Division. However, for this season it looks like they will be Solway IHC. We would like to place on record our sincere thanks to General Manager Jamie Thompson and Head Coach Martin Grubb for their hard work, dedication and professionalism throughout the process. We look forward to continuing to work closely with both as we build for the future. So, no big surprises. Jamie Thompson will remain as GM, Martin Grubb will remain as the head coach of the Solway side. We would also like to thank the NIHL, league officials, fellow clubs and their representatives for their support, cooperation and professionalism during recent months. The willingness shown by so many people across the game has helped make this next chapter possible. One of those things I think that people have possibly not quite been appreciative of at times over the last couple of years. This group of national division owners have worked really hard together to try and get things to work when things have gone to the wall. We saw it. Obviously, the Sheffield situation, not the best example, but the Romford situation with Romford, with the Bees, with the Bison coming back, with lots of little bits and pieces, they are trying to work together in a constructive way. In addition, we will excuse me, dearie me. That would have been a great way to end the stream, wouldn't it? Chokes and falls over in the heat. In addition, we would like to thank Dumfries and Galloway Council for their cooperation and engagement throughout this process. We look forward to continuing positive discussions and building a strong, healthy working relationship that benefits both the club and the wider community. This season marks the beginning of an exciting new chapter, one built on unity, ambition and determination to create lasting success both on and off the ice. PR guff, as you can appreciate, but saying the right things, because of course Dumfries and Galloway owning the rink in Dumfries as they do, they have to be on board for this to happen. To our supporters, thank you for your patience, loyalty and belief. Your backing has never wavered and we cannot wait to see you back at the rink. Welcome to Solway IHC. The journey continues, is the word out of our friends in the north. Now, I'm interested, of course, to hear your thoughts and feelings on this. Do please stick them in the chat. I think probably as soon as I knew Jamie Thompson was involved, I knew something of some description would happen. Now, of course, the big issue for Solway is that it does effectively reset them back to start point, back to level one, as it were. And the issue that they have is that they, of course, did announce some guys were coming back. Are they coming back? That will need some sort of confirmation because it is a different operating entity. We have also seen some players have moved away for a bunch of reasons. Some of it, for sort of move on. We've seen a few players that definitely won't be back. There's a few I'm certain will return. I think we can all probably put some very heavy money on Liam Stenton returning to the Dumfries Ice Bowl for 26-27. But of course, Dylan Stewart moved on. Hamill moved on. Kel Beattie is moving on. We've seen as well Liam Danskin has elected to move to Paisley in the SNL. So there is that uncertainty. There is a cost to that, and that is losing out on some players. Very interesting to see Carl Carruth, of course, another name who has moved on, who you thought might have hung around in the National Division in Solway had it been an issue. Of course, he's now moved down to Basin, so he's gone. He's not gone. He's not just moved down the road. He's properly moved away from Solway. So a bit of an interesting situation. Obviously, as well as that thing for the fans still hanging and hovering in the air, because there's a lot that needs to be done in a very short space of time. Season tickets need to come out. We need to get signings announced in bits and pieces. What sort of impact will this have if the National Division side need players? Where are they going to look? Well, they're going to look to the Solway Sharks SNL roster. And what will that mean for the Sharks in the SNL come 26-27 if suddenly a bunch of their top-end guys who were going to be doing first, second line duty in the Scottish National League are suddenly doing third and fourth line duties in the National Division. But the other thing we have seen, of course, is that Solway as a club have been in existence for about 12 hours. And they already have 4 pre-season games lined up. 22nd and 23rd of August, starting even before some Elite League teams. Solway will be a home-and-home series against the Blackburn Hawks. And then on the 29th and 30th of August, a home-and-home series against the Edinburgh Capitals, the champions of the Scottish National League. So, early start. We've, of course, had a few bits and pieces from other teams and the like getting some pre-season fixtures out. We do know that there's going to be a sort of rotating door of Swindon playing Basingstoke and Bristol and so on and so forth. Though, of course, Bristol have managed to land themselves a home-and-home series against Guildford in the pre-season, that last weekend of August, where it will be Saturday at Cribbs Causeway and Sunday at the Spectrum. That's right, my first game of last season for the Flames was against Le Gothique d'Avignon, and this year it's against the Bristol Pitbulls, but at least I know who the players for the Pitbulls are. That's a good start. As opposed to last year with Amiens, where I don't speak French and cannot pronounce anything in French and had to do the worst hash job. It sounded like a character from a lower low. But I think for Solway, the big issue here is that they are really behind the 8 ball now. It's going to be getting a lot together in a really short space of time. And where they will have wanted to kind of push on and do more, they're now kind of having to go back to the point they were at a couple of years ago, where, of course, they brought a lot of that North 1 roster that dominated North 1 for so long into the National Division. And they were... they were not quite, at the time we thought they might be okay, but there were a few guys that maybe were not quite at the requisite level. Who are they going to be able to find in short order? Who's going to want to sign? Given the fact there is still a little bit of uncertainty, what is this new ownership group going to be able to put in terms of money? Will they be able to be competitive at national division level? Now, if you ask Jamie Thompson, and I've only spoken to him very briefly today, the answer will be yes. I did ask the new ownership if they had anything they wished to contribute. If there was a new statement or if anybody wanted to come on tonight. Jamie Crosby said to me that they weren't ready for anything this evening, but they will let me know when they are in a position to start speaking out and talking wider. So we will wish them all the best with that. And certainly, I think, given the fact that you have 3 Scottish teams in the Elite League, obviously the SNL is on the rise. But the SNL is not the same level as the National Division. The SNL is at that level, around NIHL Division 1 level. Having a club like Solway as a kind of developmental stepping stone for players out of the SNL, or for just players in that really far northern bit of England to really be able to come and play in a good level semi-professional league. Now, yes, the Capitals are doing good things at the top end of the SNL, but to import SNL hockey is not of the same standard as the national, and therefore having a team like Solway for Scottish players is really big and really helpful for them, because it actually means as well that you don't have to travel quite as far, or have to travel all the way down to England, maybe take a year away from being close to those clubs that you are used to, that you want to if you're aiming for Elite League hockey. Dundee, Fife and Glasgow, well, being on a two-way with Dundee is a bit easier when you're in Solway. Ask John McBean. It's harder to be on a two-way with Dundee if your week in, week out hockey that you're playing is for Telford or Milton Keynes or Peterborough. So, would imagine those who hasn't been announced elsewhere have been approached by the other club, especially the imports, trust the process or join an established/stable club, is the question from C in the chat. I think, yeah, it's an entirely reasonable thing as well, because you have to wonder about guys like Olivier Arsenault, who's obviously been around, was announced as coming back before all of the proverbial brown stuff hit the spinny wheelie thing that blows cold air, and boy, could we all use one of those today. But yeah, there's so much kind of going on there at the moment, and obviously this is day one with a lot of chatter going out, and admittedly, and we've already announced more pre-season friendlies than some teams have already. The other big bit of news out of the national today, and it may have slid past you a little bit because it was more buried away in and amongst the fact that, like I said, every team put out the stuff about Solway. The news from the Telford Tigers that they are losing their title sponsor, was certainly news that triggered a little bit of attention from me, mostly because of some bits that were buried away in the press release itself. Now, obviously, Telford put out the news this morning, saying that their partnership with Autocraft, which has been their title sponsor for the last year, would conclude upon the expiry of the current agreement on the 31st of July. But there's certainly a little bit in this statement, and it's on telfordtigers.net, which is the Tigers website, but they talk about the fact that that they thank them obviously for everything they've done, that the agreement is not being renewed. And they have been there with them for, have been a sponsor for quite some time. But it's this bit in the middle of this press release that got me. Following discussions regarding the future of the partnership, both parties understand that continuing in the headline sponsorship position is no longer a viable option moving forward. Whilst the club respects this decision, the conclusion of the agreement comes during a crucial period of preparations for the 26-27 season, with less than 10 weeks remaining until the new campaign begins. Following this development, the club is now actively seeking a new headline partner and welcomes conversations with businesses interested in playing a key role in supporting Telford Tigers and helping shape the club's future. And then it talks about the things that title sponsorship offers. That wording, and I welcome I welcome anybody from the Tigers correcting me on this. But that makes it sound like they were anticipating Autocraft were back. But that almost that this has kind of come out of the blue of Autocraft saying, we're not in a position to continue funding to the level we were funding, and we need this agreement. We are not going to be renewing as a result, because that feels like Telford kind of going, right, this has kind of put us in a little bit of a sticky situation in terms of some of the money that they were going to be using for their roster. And that's not to say that Telford are in trouble. That's not what I think you'd be reading way too hard. You'd almost be looking between the lines so hard you've lost where the line's gone to say that. But certainly it looks like that's given Telford a little bit of a headache and a sticky situation that they now are going to have to navigate at speed. As I mentioned, we are but 10 weeks away from from bits and pieces getting starting in terms of pre-season. My first pre-season game, 30th of August. We're not too far away. We're less than a month. We're just about a month out from my birthday at the end of July. So that's going to be an interesting one. ALBL7CO. I'm going to call you Al because that's easier. Evening all. Hopefully Rhodes Mitchell King returns to the Tigers. There's been a lot of rumblings that Rhodes Mitchell King is not going to be back at Telford this year, but there is nothing confirmed at the moment. You can make your own guesses as to who will be signing a young British defenceman for this season. I'll just leave those things hanging in the air because, like I said, nothing's confirmed, but I'm interested to see where he ends up. I have my suspicions that Rhodes Mitchell King will be swapping the West Midlands for somewhere more around the Buckinghamshire region, is my initial guess on such things. That is said as having no input and no knowledge of that either. But given the roster that lot are building, he strikes me as somebody who would probably fit that mould. All things considered. But yeah, like I say, so there's a few interesting bits there in the National Division, and of course, like I said, we've had signing news out of the National Division today. As I say, the graphics not wanting to work there in a minute means we will abandon it ever so slightly. But Romford could surely use a decent defender to go with Baker. Yeah, so someone on Facebook said they should get 5 guys to challenge Peterborough and Wendy's. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. How many outskaters do you have? It would be great promo for 5 guys. Which five guys will you choose? The advertising is there. Are 5 guys franchise jobs? I assume that they are, because the Wendy's is a franchise deal, right? And so it's not like so I assume that a 5 guys franchisee, if he chose to, would be able to sponsor a club like that. But yeah, like I say, the news. Being as it is that we have had the news come out of Basingstoke this evening, as well as Swindon. We'll look at Basingstoke mostly because I've got his details up on my phone as we're talking. But there was talk that Charlie Risk was heading to Britain. The brother of Brady Risk, who last year played. Started in the Allsvenskan and then came across to play for Glasgow. Back in Glasgow for 26-27 is Brady, but his brother Charlie has been announced tonight by the Basingstoke Bison. Played in the NCAA Division 3 for Albertus Magnus College, which is a fantastic name, makes him sound like a Swedish king from the 1800s. Albertus Magnus turned pro in 2023. He went and played for Mont Blanc in the French second tier. Has spent a good chunk of time over the last 2 seasons with the Huntsville Havoc of the SPHL, one of the better organisations within the SPHL. Did start 25-26, played 32 games in the Oberliga South for SC Riesesee, which has to be one of the prettiest places an ice rink has ever been put. Is Riesesee up in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. But yeah, so last season for Charlie Risk as he joins the Bison, 32 games in the Oberliga South for Riesesee, 6 goals, 17 assists for 23 points and 71 penalty minutes. Went back to Huntsville played 18 games, 1 goal, not 8 assists for 9 points and 67 penalty minutes. They clearly do like a punch up in the SPHL after all. But yeah, getting a good chunk of penalty minutes there. I make that 138 in what's that? In 50 games last season. How do those leagues compare? Well, for me, the SPHL, as we have seen, is a league that the National Division has made good hay in getting imports out of. Cole Ceci won an SPHL title before coming over and playing for Romford. Albertus Magnus, German Dominican friar from the 11th century. I knew you'd know something like that, Tom. But yeah, how do the leagues compare? The Oberliga South is a very, very good league. If we put it in these terms, Brett Polini, when he went and played over in the German third tier, he played in the Oberliga North and played for Halle, and the North is not as good as the South. The South is the much better half of the Oberliga. The Oberliga level, so he's played a good level. And SPHL is probably the closest proximal league. I'd say actually that probably national division teams would probably give teams in the Federal Prospects League a better run for their money. They'd probably have less joy against an SPHL side. So he's played in some okay levels. The issue will be the adaptation. I know a lot of people are wondering about this. I don't think he looks too bad, but I think this is where we go down that journey with the national. Are we having 5 imports in the national division or not? Because if this guy is a 4 or a 5, I think that probably works out quite well. If he was expected to be a number 1 guy, then I think that would probably be a bigger issue for them in that sense. Sounds a bit risky. Sorry, I'll try myself out. Don't worry. I literally made all the jokes about his brother when he played playing for Glasgow last year. What's the best signing so far in your opinion? I think Ewan Hill will have a good season. I think that Ewan Hill has a chance to show himself in a different way at Peterborough because Ashley Tate's style is very different from Sean Easton's. So there will be something to be said of how he gets used by Ashley Tate, but Ash is generally very good at giving guys a project and telling them to go and do it. I think, will he turn into a 30 goal scorer this year? Probably not, but if you can get 15 goals out of Ewan Hill this year, there's some work there. I mean, just looking at the Bison at the moment now have 3 confirmed imports, which is obviously Charlie Risk, who's a defenceman who signed today, will wear number 44, which is a very big number to wear in Basingstoke, given one of the last occupants of that number. And then the other 2 imports at the moment are Brendan Sellen and, as we know, Japanese international Sota Isogai. And therefore, we will, so he's the 3rd man signed. Does that mean he's the number 3 import? Remains to be seen on that one. But yes, interesting at the moment as well, that Bison D with Risk coming in as a defenceman. The Bison have 4 announced defenders at the moment, which are Charlie Risk, Reece Cochran, Jay King and Stuart Mogg. That feels like a very interestingly balanced team in terms of what's going on there. 2 right shot defencemen in King and Mogg, and 2 left shot defencemen in Risk and Cochran. So that should be that at least gives an element of balance. And right shot D have been a real issue for some teams this summer in terms of finding too many. An Ashley Tate team can attack and defend. Yeah, I mean certainly, yeah, it's been definitely no issues with for an Ashley Tate team. But the issue, of course, Ashley Tate's team was predicated on one line that scored 332 points in the regular season, one part of which has now gone to the Elite League, and we'd certainly talk about that in Cam Huff. Cam Huff having flown the nest and signed for Fife since we were last year. Tim, we'll talk a little bit more about Tim Wallace momentarily, as I'm just going to get up the bits. Just quickly grab the signings for the recent signings for the national, because of course we've had 2 in the last couple of days. With all due respect to Mason Lipsey returning home to Swindon, Mike Ellis or Doug Sinclair. I was also thinking Thomas Karpov, Mark, because Karps was a 44. Yeah, so I mean, like if you look over the last couple of days, we've seen some very interesting additions. Obviously, Bristol bringing in both Price brothers. That was an interesting one. Swindon now have Dylan Lipsey coming back, and now of course Mason has joined, so they have both Lipsies, with the Lipsy already retired, jersey already in the rafters. Ben Morgan obviously back over the last few days. Callie Robertson has gone to Edinburgh because fine. And Owen Sobchak back for Leeds, but certainly the two big ones, one yesterday and one today. You always know it's a big signing when I get a message from somebody within the Sheffield organisation telling me that it's a big signing. And that is that Shane Owen, after 7 years with Fife and a year with Belfast in the Elite League, has left the Elite League to be the man between the pipes for the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Now, certainly a surprise to many. And this will kind of overlap and intersect some of this chat about Fife and Tim Wallace as the new head coach and GM. But Shane Owen has been a really good servant of Fife. Through all of the muck, through all of the mess of the last couple of years, he has continuously put in a shift to try and get his club to win hockey games. And God love him, he has had absolutely zero in front of him to give him any level of support. And so, with him now being 36 years old, is it a case of him wanting an easier time and a payday and just not wanting to have to deal with the Elite League anymore? There's potentially some truth to that. But also as well, Slava Kulikov and Jamie McElroy don't do things without a lot of thought to them, particularly Slava. Slava, big fan of an import goalie, as we know. Owen is an immediate upgrade on Brady Parker. That's 100% of certainty. Shane Owen is now the best netminder in the National Division. I'm sorry. I love Sam Gospel, and Sam Gospel might be the defining netminder of the National Division era so far. And you can talk about Aleksanteri Heiskanen being really, really good, and Heskey, clearly very good netminder. You can talk about Rennie Marr and him and winning the league title. 100%. Rennie is not a bad keeper. Rennie is a good keeper. But Shane Owen is now the best netminder in that division. It's a very, very good signing. It's big, and it's the sort of signing that does make you wonder what the Dogs will do in terms of filling out some of their Brits, because that's actually what the Steel Dogs roster lacks. It's a bit of Brit depth. They got a little bit of it, but they kind of got all the big names on board now already, as well as 5 imports. You can tell us it's 5 imports now, folks. It's okay. It's all right. You can be honest now. But there's certainly, Owen. I think the bigger thing here with Owen is it's a multifaceted thing, right? The Steel Dogs want to win. They have a cup to defend, if nothing else. But also as well, I think there's a bit of a look towards balancing out a couple of different bits and pieces here, which is the Steel Dogs as an organisation wanting to win in the National Division. Important. Another thing is about Alex Oldale. Now, Lucas Brine coming in for the Steelers as the backup to Matt Greenfield is what it is. Now, I want Lucas Brine to do well. I am not necessarily convinced by Lucas Brine as a starting netminder at the Elite League, whereas I think Alex Oldale has had starts in the Elite League and proven that he was proven that he could do it. But I think a lot of what Shane Owen is here to do is to really help Alex Oldale get ready. We saw last season that in some big moments it didn't go his way and it really bounced his confidence. Then he got hurt, not just hurt, really hurt. And I think there's something to be said there about not about wrapping Alex Oldale in cotton wool, and not about holding his hand, but sometimes when you don't need your hand held, but an arm around your shoulder to shuffle you in the right direction can be a big thing. And I think this is what this signing is. Is Shane Owen going to be a Steel Dog for the next 7 years? Probably not. Not 36. But can he really test Alex Oldale? Can he find where the weaknesses are? Can he help him work on those? And can he get Alex Oldale ready to be a Sheffield Steeler? Not just a Sheffield Steeler, but the man who in a couple of years' time, when Matt Greenfield moves on to something else after being in Sheffield for a time, where Alex Oldale becomes a viable option to put in the net between the pipes for the Sheffield Steelers. That's what That's the thing there. Now, will people be sceptical of that? 100%. Because, like I said, Shane Owen is a very, very good netminder and could still do a job in the Elite League, even if he's potentially been burned by and burned out by his time in the Elite League. What we do from there, I don't know. But I'm certainly interested in how not just what Shane Owen does, but the usage, of course, of Alex Oldale between the pipes. I have been told that he will get reps. Is what I've been told. All things considered. But the other news that came out today was Swindon announcing not just the fact they've signed a new import, but they've signed a new import on a 2-year contract. Sean Richards, 27 years old, out of St. Albert, Alberta, Canada, signs for the Wildcats for 2 seasons after spending the last 3 years in the Ligue Magnus in France. Played 2 years for Briançon and last year for Amiens. Last season scoring 24 points in 44 games for Amiens, who had a bit of a wonky year. Started with Kevin Bergin as coach. They didn't quite work out there. Bergin not back for this season for them, but has experience. Did play in 21-22. Did play 42 games in the Elite League for the Nottingham Panthers. Had 15 points. He was 5+10 in his time with Nottingham. Spent some time as well in the Oberliga North with the Tilburg Trappers, the lone Dutch representative in the German third tier, and spent some time played in the WHL with Regina, with Everett, and with Seattle. Most of his time there with Everett, and then had a couple of seasons at Mount Royal University in Canada West. Before turning pro with the Panthers. Now it's certainly a bit of an interesting one, this one, because this is the sort of player with a profile who could have ended up back in the Elite League. Now, Richards did not play for Amiens when they came over to play when they played Guildford last season. I believe there was some sort of family issue and he'd gone home as a result. But he was. This is not a mild signing by any stretch of the imagination. Bison signing a defenseman out of the SPHL, that's a much more run-of-the-mill national division signing. And obviously we don't know what else the Bison have spent their money on. But with Risk coming in, you do feel that's possibly the end of Zach Shankar's time in Basingstoke, potentially. But if they run 5 imports, maybe not. Swindon have gone out and signed a guy that has the profile of an elite league forward, to go and not just to play, but 2 years of Sean Richards in the national division. I realise as well, and my reporting in the past has talked about this, that the contracts in an organisation offer out do not offer easy out clauses when you go. We saw what happened. A couple of years ago at Leeds when guys leave a NEL organisation to go somewhere else. But this guy screams that he could potentially be on the radar of an Elite League team. And maybe by Christmas. I'm really fascinated how he is used. I'm really fascinated how this turns out. Swindon fans are going to be absolutely cock-a-hoop with this guy. He looks really good. And you think about the guys who aren't coming back. You think about Van der Maraka not coming back. Oh well. Not the end of what you're going to do when you have a guy who was good for you and then replace him with somebody better. Watkins not back either. Well, you might have just replaced 2 men in the aggregate with 1 player there, the quality that he looks. Richards is a guaranteed 70 to 90 point player. If he doesn't get 70 points, something has gone wrong and he will not be back for year 2. Unless he gets really hurt at some point during this. If he doesn't score 70 points, I think Aaron Nell will want his money back. Thought Zaka said his goodbyes to the Bison. I could be wrong. I mean, a lot of guys see you along the way post at the end of the season because the contract isn't signed, so we don't really know. Shankar, of course, had a weekend the other weekend where he scored 11 assists in the Australian League. It's going well. The confirmation last night in the interview, Chris Dickens said with Pete Russell that Liam Stewart will be classed as a Brit in the National League. He was before. Isn't a shock. On that front. But yeah, certainly talking about that. But the other thing as well for Shane Owen, and maybe it was time to just move on from Fife with new ownership and new coaching coming in. But as well, this is a really interesting one here for Tim Wallace as the new GM of the Flyers, where he has gone to the well and gone to players that he is used to. Ben Solder bought to Fife. Rhys Kelly, some player he's very aware of, brought to Fife. Cam Huff, after scoring a bajillion points in the National Division last year, giving an opportunity at Elite League level. And you have to believe, as the one person who commentates on Elite League that has decent-ish knowledge of the National Division, and that's not to discredit the others, but I have watched a lot more National Division than I think every other Elite League commentator. To see the fact that some fans are like, this guy will be gone by Christmas because he's not going to be good enough, haven't watched Cam Huff. Like, I don't know what to tell you on that one, but it certainly is interesting that Wallace is, Fife were honest about what they were going to do. They want their brick core and they want imports to accentuate that, which is tough in that sense, because it's a league that can have up to 15 imports. The issue I think at the moment with this brick core is that with their core is there is no big headline name here, and the one guy you probably could have relied on that is Elite League top end quality was Shane Owen, and Shane Owen is now not there. Which is going to be a tough one. If I just we just have a quick look at the Fife roster, and apologies for not pulling it up on the screen, but yeah, just seem to be having a bit of a brain fart on this one. If we have a look at the moment, there are at the moment only 2 players announced. Only 2 players announced for this Fife roster that played last season. They are Ethan Hayden and Garrett Hunt. Everybody else is new, including, of course, the one netminder that Fife have announced, which is Jordan McLaughlin. Now, will McLaughlin be your number 2, or will McLaughlin be your number 3? Very interested to see what happens there, especially as well, given the fact that McLaughlin was given the ball to run with, and Matty Davies brought in Alexander Terry-Heskinen. But everybody else is brand new. Fife have actually, of course, announced a couple of people in the last couple of days. Yesterday, announcing Xander Lamper, he joins from the main Mariners of the ECHL, and then the news today that they have announced defenseman Joseph Pearce, known as Joey Pearce, who turns pro with the Flyers after spending the last couple of years and last season captaining the University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs. So this is a guy last season who was playing with an array of NHL draft picks: Max Plant, Zam Plant, Jason Sugarbass. So you've got Red Wings pick, Penguins pick, Tampa Bay pick in there as well. Had Adam Gajan, who's a Blackhawks prospect in goal, with Scott Sanderlin coaching them there. This guy has captained a very, very good side, and he's now turning professional in Fife. Virtually every import Fife have signed will be so far have been first year pros as well. If I just quickly scoot back and have a look at Fife, it certainly is. Yona Vainio is definitely not. He's not. I mean, the other ones I'm certainly interested to see how he does at Fife is Kyle Watson. Kyle Watson could have hung on in Sheffield, could have waited maybe a year or two and been given a chance, but he's been given the opportunity at the Elite League now and wants to go play now. And actually, you know what? Fair play to him, because this is what I've been saying that Elite League clubs should do with British players: give them an option and let them play and see what happens. And if Fife is going to be the new age Hull Stingrays who give Brits a chance to go play 15-20 minutes a night when they maybe are on the cusp, then fair play to Tim Wallace. Will it win Fife an Elite League title? Maybe not, but they might be able to cause a bit of a stink along the way, and that'd be fun. Just looking in the chat, a question about Liam Stewart's classification as a Brit. So this is an interesting one, and it's one that goes back about 12 years at this point. And it's down to the very, very strange way that Liam Stewart ended up in the WHL. Because there was a lot of talk about getting him British nationality to play for the national team when he was playing in the WHL, because a player like that, who was eligible to play for Britain, who wanted to play for Britain because he was British, it caused a lot of perturbation. And Liam Stewart is effectively the anomaly. He is the ghost in the machine. He is the exception to the rule, because he was a British national playing on a work visa in a league where he had not completed any junior training, where he had gone through to the junior system, but was not a national of the country. Because that's the thing people forget, right, about the nationality rules within the IIHF, is that you need to have the passport to qualify for those bits and pieces. It's not just a case of being there for a very long time. Even in leagues that have much more freer bits and pieces, right? Why do players go? Why do so many guys end up qualifying for German passports? It's because once you have a German passport in the German league system, you become a German. You become a domestic player. So that's why players hang around in there for so long, right? But the issue with Stewart was he was a British national, and he was playing in the only country he had ever played hockey in, was my understanding, but did not have a passport to that country, and was playing in the WHL within sort of a weird visa restriction. And the IHUK just went, well, this doesn't make sense and doesn't fit any of the rules. What do we do? And the IIHF were basically lobbied by IHUK, and they came down and basically said, he is British. He's a British national, and he doesn't fit the criteria to do this. He doesn't fit the criteria to do that. We will make a decision that he is British, but he is therefore British. And he would then have to go through all of the rigmarole if you wanted to become a different nationality. But the thing is, of course, he got deemed as British by the IIHF, played for GB. It's a moot point at this stage. But why he counts as a Brit in the national division is likely to do with the fact of because he is just this complete oddity where he sits fully outside of the rules, but because of how he was deemed British, because it was effectively done as sort of a sidearm, I don't think it can work like that, where he is not, where he cannot be British in the national division because of the way that was done. He would be an import in the Elite League as not British. A couple of years ago, he may well have been. I don't know what the situation would be with Liam Stewart now, but it's a moot point because he's not signing. He was an import at COV, yes, but the rules have slightly changed since that point as well. So what it would mean now, I don't really know. Now, it's different. It is different for a player like Edgars Bebris, for example, because Edgars Bebris has no British passport, to my knowledge. And he counts as British trained, but from my understanding, Edgars Bebris has a Latvian passport. Liam Stewart has only ever had a British passport, and that was the sort of the weird oddity that kind of came with it. Because of his status in the WHL, they couldn't figure out what it was. It's in some ways what they could have and maybe looked at for somebody like Leon Okonkwo Prada, but IHUK wasn't running to the IIHF to get him classified as a Brit. Now, what is the confusion that this means? Firstly, Milton Keynes have done the sensible thing, which is double check. If you're not sure, double check. See Bristol? It can be done. But because he is this sort of bit of an oddity whose nationality has only ever really been decided by the IIHF. If he's British, then he's British, and it's an easy argument to make. Well, they've said it, so you need to follow that. But it then does throw up the issue of the Smethams. It does throw up the issue of Leon Okonkwo Prada. Or, just like we're waiting for the 5 import bits and pieces to be announced, we may be looking down the barrel of British passports being your ticket to being a British player within this league. And it would not be a completely out there prospect. It happens a lot in a lot of places, like we just talked about. It happens in Germany. You get a German passport, you aren't an import anymore. In Australia, if you get permanent residency, you become a domestic player in Australia. And in Australia, that counts for Australia, whether you are an Australian or a New Zealand. So you could, if you're an import player, end up living in New Zealand, playing the NZIHL, getting a New Zealand residency and a New Zealand passport, and then go play in the AIHL as a domestic player without counting towards the import limit. So that's a really weird way of doing those things. The short version is that, like I say, the TLDR, the wrap-up bit there, Liam Stewart's situation is incredibly weird and incredibly strange. And we should probably get him on the show to discuss it. And talk about it that way. Because I think that would probably make people a lot happier about such things. Andrew Day has come through, as he usually does, from the Kingston Diamonds Facebook. Because Andrew has sent through his little update on women's hockey. So this has gone up on the Kingston Diamonds Facebook page today. We are back in the Elite League after an incredible season of hard work, determination and success. We are proud to announce that the Kingston Diamonds are back in the Elite League. This achievement is a testament to the commitment of our players, coaches, volunteers and supporters who've been with us every step of the way. The hard work doesn't stop here. We're ready to compete at the highest level once again and can't wait for the challenges ahead. Thank you to everyone who has supported the Diamonds on this journey. Here's to an exciting season back in the Elite League. So nothing from the WNIHL themselves, and nothing about whether that means Bristol are going down or whether we're going to have a 7-team Elite League, which wouldn't be a bad thing. I think the one thing we could probably all agree on, that having a 6-team top flight does feel a little bit light. So having a 7th team in there, not necessarily a bad thing. The other thing as well that Andrew has mentioned, he was actually on the call for this, and congratulations on getting some more commentary time to friend of the show, Andrew Day. But the Bristol Women's Ice Hockey Friendship Tournament last weekend at Cribbs Causeway, 12 teams, 66 games in the round robin tournament. Ended up with 4 semi-finals. The first semi-final, a 1-0 victory. The Bristol Huskies elite roster took on the Bristol Huskies Division 1 roster. Becky Osmond with the lone goal deciding that game. In the other semi-final, the Sheffield Shadows beat the Oxford Midnight Stars by 1-0. Eleanor Shaw's with the goal to put the Shadows into the final. But it was the hometown heroes winning the Bristol Women's Ice Hockey Friendship Tournament. A 2-0 victory for the Bristol Huskies elite roster over the Sheffield Shadows. Katie Edgington and Aniko Gall with the goals that keep the trophy in Bristol for the season. And there is, on the Saturday the 4th of July, if you're up around Sheffield Way, the Sheffield Shadows Women's Summer Tournament. So that's Saturday the 4th of July at Ice Sheffield, starting at 10 a.m. and finishing at 9. A full day of smaller games, 2 competitions, 1 for under-16s and 1 for senior teams. So of course, the under-16s division been a really great addition to the WNIHL. Some pretty crazy results at times, but great to see some really, really focused development on under-16s. And of course, the fact the registration criteria in women's hockey is markedly different, so players can play at multiple levels. As we saw at playoffs, players playing at multiple levels for different teams and different clubs on the same day. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anyone wants to chuck in the chat, please do. We will, very, very quickly, just as I say, talking about Fife, because like I say, they are going to be a very interesting prospect this year. Lots of movement, of course, around the elite league. Even just today, a few names have been announced in different places. We talked about Joseph Pearce joining the Fife Flyers. Guildford have announced the signing of Jake Willets. He's joined from the Reading Royals. He looks a very interesting sort of offensive-minded defenseman. They certainly tried this by signing Jake Gravel last year, and Gravel didn't quite pan out in the way they wanted to, so Willets will hopefully be a bit more offensively potent in that sense. Tim Doherty is back with the Nottingham Panthers. Kieran Long, for me, one of the best British players of the Elite League era, should have 150 caps for GB and doesn't because I don't know why. Back with the Belfast Giants. Cade Nielsen announced tonight as well as being back with the Glasgow Clan. And I can see as well Dante Hanoun leaving the Manchester Storm trading the new arena for the newest members of the Eisliga of the Milano Hockey Club. So the thing, because there are Italian teams in the Eisliga, but they're all very much concentrated in that bit right in the north of Germany, which is majority German speaking. It's very much ice hockey territory there. Prior to the 1920s, was part of Austria. So Milano as a club in the Eisliga that is in proper Italian territory is a really, really interesting one there. Don't worry, Tom, I've seen that message. We will get to that as well. And of course, there's a few other names that popped up over the last couple of days in the league. Thomas Caron and going to Cardiff, and Arturo Arnio. Arnio going to Sheffield. A couple of guys coming out of the Finnish league, and a few guys from Finland coming across in that sense. I know as well Chris Inglis back for another season with Dundee, and then there's that sort of spate of Nottingham players leaving to join teams in France. The one we should mention though, Andrew Dixon back for yet another year as in sort of netminding support for the Belfast Giants for the Irish international. Played for Ireland at a multitude of IIHF development cups. This is, if I'm right, is it 17 or 18th season with the... No, this is season 19 with the... season 17... 16, 16, I can count. 16. Season 16 with the Belfast Giants for Ballymoney's finest. In that sense. But yeah, the Elite League just is kind of sort of rumbling along, but pre-season fixtures have started to come out as well. We've seen Cardiff and Nottingham will butt heads during pre-season. Dents are coming over to play Cardiff, which for anybody who knows Paul Thompson's history, that'll be an interesting one there. But yeah, Guildford are playing Bristol and Coventry, which is a bit different. But yeah, still a few bits and pieces of announcements left to come in terms of pre-season. Of course, we know the Belfast Giants will not be in the Champions Hockey League because of the availability of what is now the O2 Belfast, no longer the SSE Arena, but the Odyssey now rebranded as part of this deal with O2. That the Belfast O2 Giants will be playing out of the O2 Belfast this coming season. They will be in joining the latter stages of the Continental Cup. Will the Dinner Plate of Destiny return to Britain for another year? And as I can see, it's I'm positive though that the Top Cats would have turned it down because there was a few players potentially moving on in the next season or two, aging out of 2 overalls, resulting in a rebuild. But yeah, Swindon obviously won Division 1 in the Division 1 South. But yeah, it is a bit of a strange one. But I think from an infrastructure perspective, I think that's probably the thing. Sigala was certainly Kingston were an Elite League team who got relegated, whereas Swindon aren't quite there in terms of their structure for bits and pieces. Probably would have caused the biggest stir if they were both in well, yeah, apologies, that's about some of the other bits. We will talk about it. I have just realised how dark this room is getting. So we will white out the camera momentarily and at least put the light on so I can see, if nothing else. But yes, we will talk about some of our friends in the north. Of course, a few signings rattling on in Division 2. Not so much coming out of Division 2 North, I've noticed, although of course the Scimitars 1 and 2, terrible name, changing back to the Titans, have announced a few players and in fact announced some management bits and pieces. And we've obviously seen some rattlings in South too, and a few signings and bits and pieces in South 1. Probably one of the biggest ones being Ethan James leaving the Romford Buccaneers to become to go back to the ice and support Ben Clark-Leach at Basingstoke. And also as well, we should say from a South 1 perspective, congratulations to Timo Lindgren, back with Slough for next year, his 16th season with the Jets. So that sort of longevity is fantastic, as well as another season in Invicta for Harrison Lillis. Of course, just had his testimonial last month. Congrats to Harry on another year down in Kent for that one. But the North, things have been rattling in the North, and that sort of crossover between the SNL and the NIHL Division 1. We've seen Whitley lose a few players to other teams in Division 1. I feel like moving on to Dundee. But certainly Whitley have picked up a few big names, namely Ian Brown and Chris Sykes from Billingham, to join Whitley in the SNL, which was obviously a bit of a shock for a lot of people, because Billingham seemed to be firmly and fully punched the rebuild button firmly in the face. And of course, the other news out of Billingham, of course, we know that they changed ownership, but Stephen Foster steps down as head coach of the Stars. Now, haven't had the opportunity to watch it before we came on air live tonight, but there is an interview with Michael Elder, who has re-signed for the Stars as captain. No new bench coach announced as of yet, though we believe, my understanding is that an appointment has been made and we are waiting on the announcement of that in Billingham. So we will need to have we will obviously wait and see fully what happens on that one. But Elder is back as captain, not as coach, because when I heard Foster had resigned, I naturally assumed Mikey Elder would step in and become player coach. But no, that's not the case. There will be a coach announced before too long for the Billingham Stars. But yeah, obviously, like I said, there's a lot of this sort of talk of what's happening to Billingham and Whitley, who came very close to a lot of silverware last year but didn't quite get themselves over the line, have really retooled themselves to go for the top and really try to chase down the Edinburgh Capitals in the SNL, of course, who then went and added Callie Robertson, who should be a 50-60 point player at least. In that sense too. But then the other thing that we've seen as well was Blackburn today said, well, anything Whitley can do in the SNL, we can do as well. And they signed former Sheffield Steel Dogs import Elmeri Helfors out of the Mestis. So, yeah, today has been pretty bizarre in the fact that third-tier British teams are signing imports out of the Finnish second tier. And Swindon are going and signing a guy who's just played the last 3 seasons in the league, Magnus, was a thing. Blackburn, of course, have made a few sort of different additions. Regan Kidd from Nottingham has joined. Owen Dell has joined from Leeds. Leeds Knights 2. They of course lost Harrison Walker. Which were back to Leeds, which was a bit of a strange one there. But it is a bit of an interesting one. When you consider as well, like some of those guys that Blackburn have brought back a bit of a core. Of course, Andy McKinney, now the coach of Blackburn, keeping a lot of those big name guys like Jack Brammer, like Charlie Thompson. He himself will still be there. A few guys have moved on. Jakob Hayek, of course, has moved on to Widnes. And the other name, of course, of moving on to Widnes is Alex Rushby, who has joined the Widnes Wild. And as Luca has put in the chat, apparently not on a two-way with anybody, which to me feels like a big missed opportunity in all directions, because Rushby is very good. And why he would only be playing National 1 next year strikes me as very, very strange, and I don't quite get that one at all. Now, Luca, as you're in the chat, if you want to tell us where you're signing, that'd be fun. Please do spoil that one for us. We like an exclusive here on the show. But certainly there's some very odd rumblings around. In the south, it has been a little bit of sort of same old. Bar, of course, as Tom has put in the chat, Neil Lydiard leaving Slough for Streatham because clearly Ben Painter, having broken a finger blocking a shot last year, doesn't fancy doing any of that again. But with Sam Waller retiring, there was a space on the Red Hawks for a veteran defenceman. And Neil Lydiard is probably still the fittest player in South 1. So in terms of his physical fitness, so I wouldn't argue that one worth a jot. I can see there as well from Sigala, Oscar Sagan, Jan Kostel Jr. back with the Wildcats too on official two-ways, and Harry Thomas joining the team again on a two-way. I mean, Harry Thomas sitting there behind Rennie Marr, no bad thing for him. It's a really, really good learning position for Harry Thomas to be in. And I've watched Harry Thomas play for Bristol in the National Division. He has the ability. What he doesn't have is the nous. The diamond needs smoothing off around the edges. It needs, it needs polishing. But Harry Thomas has got the ability to be a very good netminder in the National Division before too long. It's just about getting him there. Fascinated to see where Tyler Perry goes. Obviously, as well, a bit of a weird one at the end of last year. We think about everything that he went through last year, and then at playoff weekend, Swindon going to that semi-final, and Perry isn't on the bench, but Ben Cartledge is. And a bit of a kick in the teeth for Tyler Perry in that sense. Fascinated to see where he ends up, whether he takes some time out or not. But I'd be very interested. For me, it feels like there is a team somewhere in South 1 who could use a starting netminder of quality. And if Perry is fit, he could definitely do a job in South 1. I don't think there's any reason for him to go into South 2 at all. But you know, I don't. Or if a team desperately kind of needs a backup netminder, he could be an option for them because Tyler Perry can play minutes in this in the National Division. So, but certainly, like I say, the North one at the moment with Billingham blowing everything up and doing the NHL one's version of a rebuild is pretty strange. The idea, you know, and Whitley getting stronger and clearly making a proper English raid on the SNL for next season should be really, really interesting. Ruby Newlands I saw was back for Kilmarnock, so will Kilmarnock be the lone team in the Goose Egg Club come the end of 26-27? We will keep tabs on that as we go. So lots of fun bits and pieces there. Remember the Goose Egg Club, everybody's in the Goose Egg Club at the moment because for 26-27. When you win a competitive game, you are out of the Goose Egg Club because you have won. It doesn't matter if it's league or cup. If it's competitive and you win, then you've won a game that season and you can move on with your day. So Lee Valley actually got out of the last season much faster than we anticipated they would. All things considered. Thoughts on the Buffalo? Thank you. Joining an already cramped Division 2 South. I imagine there'd be a season or two before joining South 1. Depends on the youth programme, I guess. Yeah, I think the fact the Basingstoke's youth programme needs a full rebuild because of everybody disappearing off to other places will cause an issue there. I've made my feelings known. Bison 2 is a terrible name. It's an awful name and it's not in keeping with the... you know, there's even if they didn't call it the Buffalo, call it the Bulldogs. Basingstoke is a town with history, and I think this is a misstep by the ownership to call it Bison 2. It's lazy, and I get if there was nothing there before, then I would get doing it. Like in Leeds, you can kind of live with it a little bit because even though it's a rubbish name, like there was nothing there before in Leeds. Basingstoke is not Swindon, it's not Leeds. It has its own hockey history, and I think it was an easy tap in to do something different there that they haven't done, and I think that's really sad, and I think it's a misstep from the Bison ownership on that. But I've made myself very, very clear on that one. It's not my decision. It is theirs. I would implore them, and I will continue to implore them to change their mind, and I will be calling them the Buffalo irrespective. But yes, South 2 as a starting point is the right thing to do because, of course, but then dropping the Bison into South 2, which is already, as been mentioned there, a very crowded league. When you think about the fact there is a second team in Slough, a second team in Gosport, you think as well about the fact that there's, you know, obviously the Rising Stars are still going in Oxford, even though the City Stars will not be back in South 1 this year. There's a lot of hockey in that kind of space there that could obviously be interesting to see where some players shake out, but I'm also interested as to what happens with Yanni Vertinen. Will Yanni, who's Basingstoke based, will he give up the Junior Devils to go and play? Come back to Basingstoke. I'm not a fan of anything twos as a unique identity of names in under 10 to 19. So why should twos be any different? 100% agree. It's like I say, it is lazy and gives no identity. Slough calling their second team the Spitfires, brilliant. Also, probably one of the better logos in the NHL. What else has happened since we were last here? We obviously talked about GB last time. I will wax lyrical as always about the Australian League because the defending this year has been non-existent. Danny Bouchard of the Central Coast Rhinos already on 50 points. Nick Seitz has scored 12 goals in 4 games since coming across before he heads off to France for 26-27. Lots of good stuff there on AHL TV, and of course AHL with an ESPN TV deal, 1 game a week being shown by ESPN Australia and New Zealand. So hockey on TV, who'd have thought it? But one bit of hockey that is coming to British TV is the 3-on-3 Ice World Cup taking place in Belfast. All games will be shown on Premier Sports. We've seen that Adam Keefe will be coaching Team GB in that one. There'll be a few other Elite League players on rosters for that. Of course, from a Guildford watching perspective in terms of commentary, Josh Waller on Team GB, so we'll be keeping, of course, an eye on what he does. Desperately hoping he doesn't get hurt. But we've seen that 3-on-3 is starting to make a bit of a dent in terms of something to do. We saw GB in the in the IIHF 3-on-3 event in Innsbruck ahead of the World Championships, which was Johnny Curran's way of keeping fit because Dundee didn't make the playoffs. But it was apparently a really, really good event, really, really well done that everybody enjoyed, and it's something different. We've seen the impact 3-on-3 basketball's had, so having 3-on-3 hockey as potentially kind of a different Olympic event, there's something as well that GB could potentially have a better chance of doing something in, works out really, really well. If we can get people seeing ice hockey happening on our TV screens in the Olympics, I'm not going to argue that one at all. The other big bit of news, of course, that we should discuss as we are edging towards 9:20 is the fact that we have seen the boring legal bit from Ice Hockey UK, from England Ice Hockey, and from Scottish Ice Hockey about the Articles of Association coming out. The new Articles of Association for what is going to be the new merged entities. Now, I wouldn't recommend reading them if you don't like your dry, boring legalese, but an important step here. A very important step, outlining some of the membership bits and pieces, what those affiliated to EIH will have, what those affiliated to Scottish to SIH will have under this new banner. This is very, very important. We, of course, await. I've not heard any rumblings of bits and pieces from member clubs anywhere unhappy about this or anything that's been said so far, but, of course, somebody might have an issue somewhere. We await what is going forward on those bits and pieces. I hated when we had the Raiders 2 and Kodiaks 2. Raiders previously had the Spitfires, now have the Buccaneers. Kodiaks can't have Grizzlies, as Cambridge already have them as the juniors. Polar Bears. I mean, I'd look for another species of bear, because calling something firstly, Polar Bears it just doesn't roll off the tongue. It's why I always get annoyed when people call them the Berlin Polar Bears. That's not their name. They're the Ice Bear in Berlin. It's not hard. I'd look for a different variety of bear that's not and go down that route. Leave the juniors as the Grizzlies, have the Kodiaks, and then a different variant of bear for the twos, and leave it like that. But I'm not gonna. That's for Cambridge to kind of work out. Yeah, Kodiaks 2 is it's always a bit odd and a bit strange. But again, Cambridge doesn't have the same kind of history, so you can forgive them the eccentricity in that sort of sense. But like I say, it doesn't work in Basingstoke when there's so much history there, something to do something with, and then choosing not to, because, I don't know. So, it doesn't work for me, personally. I was going to say, by the looks of it, it has interestingly, the news of Dumfries has, the news of Solway IHC has made it onto BBC Sport. As it talks about there, it talks about all the old bits and pieces on there as well. But it is there on BBC. It is there on BBC Sport. What we will do very quickly is quickly stick this in the chat for people, so I should be able to do that one very, very quickly. If we go into there we go. If I pop that in the chat, then people should be able to pick that one out and can have a read of that at their leisure, see what they think about what has been said on the BBC. Of course, Soph, who was the subject of one of the people I interviewed for the last Hockey Stories piece, not the BBC, not her favourite people right now. I'm just skimming it very quickly to see if there's anything different. The dispute only concerned the senior men's team run by DJR Sport, not the youth and Scottish National League side. So Solway Sharks SNL lives. That's something different. Just having a look there. They've got some quotes from... They do have some quotes from Gary McCracken, one of the new directors. Just talking about... Fully understand the frustration of fans regarding the lack of updates in recent months, but it's important that we follow the correct processes and ensure the club's future was secure before making any announcements, which is pretty much what was in the announcement out of the league and bits and pieces like that. Nothing particularly earth-shattering is the word there on that one. No doubt inaccurate. Not every BBC reporter is as bad as such things. So clearly some bits going on. Where are we then? So we're heading towards the end. So get your bits and pieces in the chat that you want to talk about before we finish. Just looking at the calendar. So last Wednesday of the month is going to be Wednesday the 29th of July. Will be our July off-season show, where we'll come back in a month and talk about bits and pieces. Now, I fly to Berlin the next day, so it's not going to be the day after that one, so it's not going to be a late one. But we will reconvene on Wednesday the 29th of July to go through any other new bits and pieces. I've kind of given myself June off from kind of doing too much in terms of sort of writing and work. I realised I needed a break, and so I took a break. I'm looking to get some more articles done now over the summer. I'm not 100% certain exactly what I'm doing with a preview at the moment, because I did all the leagues last time and it was quite hard to do, and I'm not sure if I want to do that again, but I want to do some kind of preview piece for the season, but it might just look a bit different. I think might be the way of talking about that, but I haven't really set my mind on anything yet. I think what I need to do, because I've got 2 weeks off work where in the middle of that I'm going to Berlin, and I think maybe when I come back into circulation after that, maybe I'll have a better idea as to what I want my sort of season preview piece to look like. But if we liked what we had last year, which was sort of like a piece on each league, maybe that's the way to do it. But there is, I'm just, like I say, I just can't quite picture it in my brain at the moment as to what I want that to look like. So I will take all ideas. Kodak's having their tryouts tonight, so the signing news will start dribbling in. Can't wait. Awesome to hear. Thoughts on the Caps moves, trading for Jordan Kyrou and then doing a sign and trade this evening for Alex Tuck. I had not seen that. What does this mean about Ovechkin? 8 years for Alex Tuck. Blimey. That is mildly terrifying. Just having a quick squeeze through there. Let's get the Capitals bits and pieces up, because I had not seen that. As you can appreciate, I'm getting ready for these bits and pieces. But there it is. Blimey, that is... third round pick to Buffalo. Given I felt that they overpaid on Kyrou. So the Kyrou trade I got because the Caps needed somebody for the top 6 with speed who could put some points on the board, right? It did feel like they overpaid a little bit. Not drastically, but I think there was something to be said about McMichael being... because Connor McMichael's a good player, but I think he was a bit of a square peg in a round hole in Washington, and they tried and it just didn't work out as well as they wanted it to. And in some ways, Kyrou is very much a good player right now, whereas McMichael potentially had some room to do some more. But I felt like the first round pick was too... I felt the draft pick was too much. If they had... The draft pick of McMichael would have been fine had they not had the extra guy in there. But 2 players and a draft pick for Jordan Kyrou, given the fact he was on a down year, didn't make me feel great about the trade. This Tuck one, no idea. No idea, because I can't remember our cap space situation off the top of my head. But of course, Alexander Ovechkin is not signed. As of yet. Now, with all the will in the world, I do not think Alexander Ovechkin is going to go and play for another team in the National Hockey League. However, what I do not think the Capitals can allow to happen is for us to get to July the 1st and us not know what Alexander Ovechkin's intentions are from the club. If the club say, we're fully intent on signing Alex back for another year, but we're just hammering out some details, bear with us, we're working it out, we'll be back with you soon. Or they need to go out and say, Alex is going back to Russia, and he will retire from the NHL, because the one thing the Washington Capitals must not allow to happen is Alexander Ovechkin to play in another National Hockey League team. It cannot happen. As a Caps fan, that is unacceptable to me. to see Ovechkin playing another team's jersey. What I do find interesting here is Tuch and Kyrou in the space of a day makes it sound like the Capitals are retooling in a slightly different way. Are they going for it one last time with Ovechkin? Is it like, Alex, we're going to put some really good pieces around you. We'll do what we can, but we can't promise you miracles, but we'll make it as good as we possibly can. Alex Tuch for 10.5 million for me feels too much, but you're always going to overpay at this point of the season to get guys ahead of hitting the open market. Because what would have Tuch got on the open market? Maybe more. So, a strange one. A bit of a strange one. Last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. Anything else anybody wants to stick in the chat, please do. My son's school has shut because of the heat today and tomorrow, and they already had an inset day down for Friday. So yeah, works out well. Works out well for me. I get a really nice long weekend as a result because I am on duty tomorrow looking after him. But yeah, hopefully. I mean, the big thing I'd say, folks, is please in this weather just look after yourselves. Like, it's really like it's so easy to forget to like properly hydrate, to do all the bits and pieces, because you just want to kind of get on and do what you need to do, even though it's too hot, right? But I mean, that's the thing. That's all I can just kind of repeat to you guys. Please look after yourselves in this heat. If you've got elderly neighbours as well, please do, like, if you can, check on them. Just make sure they're okay, because like this weather can do really, really bad things to folk who are unwell, old, vulnerable to because of illnesses and stuff. So do just check in on folk if you can. Make sure everybody's okay. Luckily, we're off to my dad's on Friday down in Kent, so that should be interesting. But my dad also lives in an air-conditioned flat by the sea, so could be worse. Not the worst weekend to go to the beach, is my understanding. But yeah, great to chat about bits and pieces with folk this evening. Like I say, Wednesday the 29th of July, our July off-season special. We will then hit towards the back end of August, and that's when we'll start rolling back into our weekly spin of doing the What's Current stream, where we'll go through all the results. Obviously, pre-season will take a little while to warm up. We might see how we feel at the beginning of September. We might wait until the league season starts before we go every 2 weeks. But the intention will be to at least pop back up at the end of July and the end of August before commentary restarts for me with the Flames. Because yes, like I say, if you had missed it, I am back for my second season of Elite League commentary with the Guildford Flames for 26-27. Massive thanks to Kirk Humphries and the trust that the organisation has put in me. Doesn't mean I'll be disappearing from paying attention to the National Division and all the NHL and all of British hockey. Absolutely not. I intend, once again, to be trumpeting all of British hockey in all its forms, everywhere. There has been nothing more fun than being able to talk about folk like Jodie Attrell-West, like Lily Endicott, like Jodie Alderson-Smith, like Mila Petroni, all these fantastic women who are playing. Talking about GB women, talking about folk in. Will the Glasbys ever leave Sutton in North 2? Will Guildford reign supreme? What will Haringey do with the Pollards? Also, as well, Sam Siwak, who's going to Haringey and is playing for the Central Coast Rhinos. This kid looks like he'll be very, very good. Also, it's great to meet you in Slough. Your unpixelated face. Yes, I am real. I promise, I am real. So yeah, good to meet you too, Dave, as well. It's really good to see you there. But yeah, lots of good stuff kind of happening. Heading up to Northwest tomorrow, plenty of water, LGBTQI plus weekend. At least the hotel's got aircon. Oh, we're all going to melt, Jamie. We're all going to melt. We'll call it there. Banners on the wall at WordPress.com. One source for all things related to British hockey. Like I say, more coming in July. When things get rocking and rolling. Busy month in our house. All 3 birthdays in the house are in July. So, but looking to get some work, some more bits and pieces on the website after taking June off. But yes, head down into the description. Hit all the socials. We're on X. We're on Facebook. We're on Blue Sky. So do check out bits and pieces there, as well as the link to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And as well, all the YouTube spiel. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, like all the videos. Go check out the YouTube channel. We've got plenty of interviews across the breadth and depth of British hockey from years gone by. club owners, coaches, captains, some really awesome, really bizarre stuff as well. And then if you want to read instead of listen, you can go read on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, and there's all that good stuff there. And then when the new season comes around, like I say, during the off season, it's every month, and then during the season we are weekly, Wednesday nights, 8 p.m, as long as I don't have a game that I'm commentating on, where we will talk about every game from every division, from the Elite League all the way through the men's senior system and the women's senior system, Leeds to Lee Valley, Belfast to Bradford. We leave no stone unturned. If you support that team in British hockey, if there's organised men's or women's leagues, we will talk about it from the Elite League to the Under-16s WNIHL. We leave no stone unturned, because I realised that we had lots of people talking about lots of bits, and actually what we want to do here at What's Current is talk about the big stories across all of it, but also tell people about those other things that are there, because maybe they didn't know there was a women's team, maybe they didn't know there was an NHL 2 team nearby, maybe they only watch Division 1 South, and maybe they just aren't in touch with what's going on in the Elite League. Then we can at least keep you up to date on the weekly. We may not be able to get the depth that some folk get because they only focus on one small bit, but we can be the ones to open the doors. We can be the airport, and you can walk through the gate onto whichever plane you want to fly with as it comes to your hockey. That's what the What's Current stream is here to do. To talk about the big bits, and we will go in depth, and people will tell you. Certainly, the old folk will say in the chat, I'm an opinionated soul, and I will when I need to stand on business, I will stand on business 10 toes deep in the dirt and say my opinion on the big bits of British hockey. Don't you worry about that. Banners on the Wall has not been around for 15 years to start being timid now. Didn't sign up to be shy. Never did. And that's what you will get here. You will get honesty, you will get fun, you will get some utter silliness out of people in the chat as well, and from me. That's what we're here for on Wednesday nights. Just a fun place to shoot the breeze and talk about the greatest sport on God's green earth. That's what you will get Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. during the season. But we will be back in a month. Hydrate. Keep your curtains closed, get the fan on, do whatever you need to do. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do everything you can, especially in weather like this, to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Waz would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For Banners on the Wall at wordpress.com, this is Anthony Ross saying stay safe, and so long till next time. Wednesday the 29th of July, 8 p.m, we will see you back here for our July off-season special. We are creeping closer and closer towards the 26-27 season, and I won't lie, starting to get a bit excited about it now. Enjoy yourselves, enjoy the weather. We will see you in a month.